separate juvenile court judges in Sarpy County. I also act and do the juvenile justice work in Otoe County. We're here today on a session entitled Communication Between the Courts and the Schools. And we have a number of presenters from our county to talk about that issue, and we'll have those folks introduce themselves in just a little bit. We pride ourselves in Sarpy County in having good communication between the various stakeholders. We're still small enough where the relationships matter. I was just thinking as I was walking in that Brad and I go to the same church. Laurie, Cooley down at the end of the table. We've been on various Graduate Straight and other school committees. I think we were concession stands at football games over the years. So there's sort of those informal kinds of relationships that develop still in Sarpy County because we are small enough. And I think that, except for probably maybe folks in Douglas and Lancaster counties can relate to that, there's a lot of those kinds of communication avenues that exist between the various stakeholders. And we do have people from education on our Eyes of the Child team. We also have what's known as the Safe Policy Committee, which is a committee that deals with juvenile justice issues, that has a number of education folks. So we think that overall we do pretty well in terms of communicating. But there are challenges in that communication, and we'll talk about some of those today. One of our challenges, of course, is that we have 4 different school districts, 4 community school districts headquartered in Sarpy County. We have Bellevue, La Vista, Gretna, and Springfield Platteview. In addition, there are portions of Sarpy County in the Omaha Public School District and in the Millard School District. So communication between those parties and other stakeholders in the system sometimes is difficult. We've had a lot of discussion over this week over all of the changes in the child welfare system, changes in case managers, changes in other parties involved in the child welfare system, which certainly has provided a lot of challenges regarding that communication piece. But I think it's fair to say that we work hard in Sarpy County to bridge those challenges and to have a system where we can communicate well between school and the court system. And again, as you've heard throughout the week, kids in the system do very poorly educationally, and one of our challenges is to how to increase the competency of children in the education system while much around them is surrounded by crisis and trauma. So those are challenges that we want to be able to meet. Before I turn it over to our panelists and have them introduce themselves in their respective roles, I would like to point out a couple of things that are in our flash drive. So one of the things that we have done recently is add some language to our probable cause determination, our original order that we do when a child is removed from the home. And in that order, we're ordering that the departments communicate with the home school district to ensure the educational needs are being met, and whether they're receiving any special education services, gifted programs, attendance, failing or close to failing, where they're excelling, and if a parent or guardian has attended a parent-teacher conference, we have developed a checklist of basically that asks those questions so that the department can communicate with the home school district, get the answers to the questions early on, which would provide the system with the ability to respond to those needs quickly. We also, on the juvenile justice side, when there is a child detained and held in our detention center, we have a similar order for the probation office to provide that same information to the courts and ultimately to all of the stakeholders in the system. So that checklist and those model orders are contained within your flash drive. We've also the checklist itself is contained within the flash drive, and there's also an order that we place in our review orders that when a child is returned home, that school information be provided to the district, to the home district, regarding that transition and the educational situation of that particular student. So, you know, those are matters in which we are trying to bridge that education gap, both on the front end and also towards the end of a case when a child is going back home. I'd like to now turn this over to our panelists. I'm going to have each of them introduce themselves. They're going to talk a little bit about their respective roles in the communication, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Judge. I'm Brad Connor. I'm the Student Service Director with Buena Vista Schools. Most of the time that's director of complaints. And so when kids aren't where they think they should be or where their parents want them to be, or the bus doesn't get them, or you name it, or things aren't being followed, or HHS representative or somebody is running into a roadblock, that call usually ends up in my lap. I can't reinforce enough, I don't think, what the judge has pointed out in terms of getting things prepared, and my basic message is do your homework. If you want to eliminate roadblocks for kids for continuity of instruction, continuity of success, eliminate as many of those dips and valleys that kids are going through. Do the homework up front. My belief is judges can and are able to order and do anything they want. And most of my experience says judges believe that too. You know, it starts right there. When you get that opportunity, ask those questions. What schools is kids supposed to be going to? And if it's not the one that they were just walking out of before they came in front of the judge, why? Why on earth would you make a change? And get that stuff done up front. Do your homework. And the checklist, I think, is an excellent, very simple way of saying, have we answered each of these questions before we even walk in a school door, before we even approach somebody in a school district about enrolling a child or about moving them or whatever the question might be. Get that stuff done up front. I'll talk a little more about some residency things and some of the other roadblocks that I think there are, not easy, but there are realistic ways of eliminating. Not getting around, but getting through. If you do the homework up front, you ask the questions up front. If the judges are kind enough to us to say, you know, this stuff needs to be discussed right now before we walk out of this room, so there aren't any surprises, I think it'll make a big difference in eliminating a lot of the stuff that we see kids having to go through when they transfer through the system, and of course increasing communication with school districts.
Hello, my name is Michelle Siders, and I work at the Pat Thomas Juvenile Justice Center. I am a supervisor / liaison / mentor. I wear many hats there at the facility. I work with the truancy program, the care program, youth that are in detention. We have a reporting center and an alternative school, which is called the SCEP school. It's for youth who are expelled from their home school and attend school there daily for credit. I was asked today to come and present on collaborating with schools in the different programs in which I work with, and how we go about working with each other and how we successfully work with each other. And when I had spoke to Judge Gendler in regards to that, my statement to him was, I don't have a big secret, I have a notebook. And he looked at me and I said, well, you can call it my black book, but it's my book. And Barb and I work at the Justice Center together, and in the last year, Barb has worked with 19 different school districts and 9 different counties. And so when I say that book, it's very important to us, because each school district has multiple schools in it, and each junior high and each high school that we work with have different contacts that are the different grade levels and the different youth and the different behaviors. So it's for us collaborating with the youth and the family and the individual school is really based on learning each individual youth. So we sit down with the youth and we find out who do you have a relationship with. And then we go from there and contact that person, and then that person works with us one-on-one or will give us to the right person. So the next time I have a 9th grader from this school district that has this particular possible disability or behavior, I know that's my contact that I can call about attendance or about homework. And so with that being said, I think that if you want a success between any program that you work with and the youth and family, then it's the individual, it's based on the individual youth.
I'm VanWassenhoven, and I'm head of the day school. And my job is kind of trying to coordinate the education, where the kid is when he comes in and where he'll be when he leaves or she leaves. It does take a little bit of time sometimes to find the right person to get a hold of. I do have, over the years you begin to develop contacts within each of the school buildings that you work with. And like last year we had about 50 different school buildings that we work with, and we try and go through the schools. In some instances we have to go through like the central office of the district in order to get some of the information we need, like their IEPs or their transcripts and things of that sort. But when we get in touch with individuals within the schools, it becomes a lot easier to coordinate things. Usually I go through counseling departments, sometimes the deans or the discipline department, sometimes it's an administrator. And what we try and do is match the curriculum that the student was in when they were in the school with curriculum that we have. Sometimes we try and get the schoolwork. We often do that. Schools will provide us with the work that the child is doing, and we go pick it up and bring it back and so forth, back and forth, so that they're actually doing the work they would be doing if they were in school. So when they get back, they can slide right in. That doesn't always work, especially when we're talking about some of the counties that are further away. When we talk about like Oto or Nemaha or Dodge County, it's not practical to go there and get daily work or even have them fax it. So in those cases, what we usually do is they send me a list of the teachers and their emails, and then I can contact individual teachers, and then they can send me an idea of what they want covered. Like if they're in American history and they're on a certain unit, they can say, this is what we're working on in class, and then I can go and develop an appropriate curriculum that would cover what they want. And then when the child's done with that, then I can send them back a report of what was covered and the grades in that. So we can match curriculum. We also do online curriculum. We use Apex. And so for some of our students, particularly those that have not been in school, we get an awful lot of them that have been out of school for extended periods of time. So there is no hope of credit at that point of them slipping back in. Then we put them in recovery credit. And they can do it that way, or we have students who do not like to work with computers. They're very uncomfortable doing computer programming. So the computer programs. So those kids, we put in actual book curriculum. We basically run the school like a giant resource room. So everything is individualized for the student. That way you have curriculum for kids 7th through 12th grade. You have core subjects, you have elective subjects, and so on, so that, and variety of levels. That's another very important thing. A lot of times the kids that we get, they need that individualization, but they also need some adjustment to the curriculum, and we can then follow the IEPs for those that are in special ed, and we're getting a lot more kids that are in special ed and have mental health issues. So those kinds of things are how we coordinate. And then when they are ready to get back into the school, we contact the school and let them know that they're being released if I know ahead of time. Sometimes I don't know that they're going to be released till the day I get in there and they've been released. But contact the schools and let them know that they left and this is where they're at. When we have kids that are going to court, we try and send information as to what they've been doing so they can take that with them. And they can also use that when they go back to the school to register, because sometimes they're going to a totally different school, they're going to out-of-home placement. If they've earned any credits, I try to send a transcript with them so that when they get there, they know not to put them in those classes, they've already done them, and then they can coordinate, and they also have my information to contact me so I can send them an official transcript. So it just makes the transition a little easier. The biggest issue is when I get kids who are sent out of state, or when a child is released and they really don't know where they're going. You know, they're gone, and I don't know where they're at. I mean, that's the biggest issue, because then you just have to wait and hope that somebody will contact you. You know, we try and tell the kids, when you get to wherever you're at, you need to go into your counselor, and you need to say, I was here, call. I want my credits, and make them advocate for themselves so that they don't lose what they want. But it's an interesting job. It's a lot of coordination, and the schools generally have been very helpful. It started out slow when I started doing it 9 years, and it's now a lot easier because I've got the contacts, so that makes a big difference. When you get contacts,
Hi, my name is Kat Kowalski, and I'm the principal of the alternative program in the Nebraska School District, and it's called Ideal. And if you're going to be interested, I do have little brochures that you can certainly have at the end of our presentation. But our program serves both the high school, the high school, and South, grades 9 through 12. My population right now in this registry are about at 65, 66, fluctuates of course day by day. I can pull up to around 85 students in my building. My building, I have one teacher per subject area, so one English, one math, one social studies, and one science teacher. I do a special education teacher in my building. I also have two teachers that are elective teachers in career classes and also computer classes. Our curriculum in our program is the same. This would be a little tricky, but we do offer a different alternative program for our students, non-traditional, to help our students get those credits. The high school diploma looks just the same as if they were attending their home high school, but
Hi, I'm Laurie, and, well, actually, I got married this summer. I forget that last part. You might not know that probably. Yeah, so I'm Laurie Bird, and this is my 21st year in our school district as a school social worker. I've been practicing social work for the last 30-some years, and I guess I tell you that, in fact, that I have a little history of seeing the change that takes place in communication and in education. And I can't imagine doing a different job. I feel very fortunate that our district brings so much in how important parents and families are in the whole education process. So Dr. Connor is my supervisor, so if he weren't here, you'd probably hear some different things. So I'm going to... he's a little more black and white than I am. Just a little bit, but I can't imagine a better supervisor or someone that I think he supervises. There's 4 school social workers, and I think it's a real good balancing act that we have. I have, I think I have 8 elementaries and then we're listed junior high. And so we're moving all the time, and we're working with families. We work with the court systems. I think we have about 10,000 students. We have growing pains. We come here today to visit with you about what might be working, but we would not be honest with you if we didn't tell you there's some glitches. There are times that we have some tough times But I think what we have is we have respect for each other. And even though we might have differences, we might make mistakes, I think the respect, working with each other, I think puts down the barriers. I think it's crucial when you're working with different systems. The privatizing of services with children has been very difficult. I can't imagine what it would be like sometimes in the schools that don't have school social workers that work with families that are helping them navigate through the system. And I think it's really a crucial role that I play more than ever. You know, I know that Judge O'Neill mentioned about low test scores for those kids in care. And it's always hard to know what happens, the egg or the chicken here first, because those kids in care might have been experiencing a lot of trauma while they were in home. And I know that so often we're talking about foster care placements and we don't want stranger care. And I get that part of it, and I feel like I'm a team player with it, but we also don't want kids in danger care. And I feel like that's the other balance that we have to do. So I miss the days when I could pick the phone up and call the Sarpy County people and have this communication, and families that you know go in and out of the system, and families we know as a district we're going to have forever. Typically those families don't move. I kept my maiden name because I didn't want to lose the contacts I had with families, because I am in the second generations and working with them, and they're here to stay and they're part of our community. And whether their experience as an adult was not good, the best that we can get is for them to embrace their childhood in school. We make gains, because if they will send them to school, we will do our best to educate them. And so I think that another thing I wanted to mention, when we have families that go to court and say we might work with them and request a truancy filing, we don't stop there and think that there's some magic bullet that's going to be sent to the judge to these families. We are constantly trying to work with them. We also work with their goals, which is, I was able to look at this, it's a greater Omaha attendance and learning services. And we think that they also can be a good team player with us in improving school attendance. I'm personally disappointed in how the law has changed. I know that there was a lot of press on the students that maybe had handicapping conditions, medical illnesses, and those ones came to the news, and the parents fighting with it. And I don't know what happened with that, but I can tell you in our district the mentality changed. I think people started realizing that we need to be accountable as a district. The parents need to be accountable to the student, and so
request on Monday, you shouldn't have to wait till Friday when the kids start school. Right? If they're telling you you can't get records, you need them. The law says that the records shall be transferred to the student upon request. You don't need to. Someone who's able to do
Laurie a question. Laurie, how many case managers or NFC staff development specialists are in the room? Anybody in the department, period? Raise it high. Okay. Yeah. All right. Laurie, what would you like to see from department case managers or from NFC case managers regarding education communication review? If you had a perfect world, what would that look like?
I think if they would call the district that the child's going to attend, I think it's just so important, and that we have some things in writing. I think that's really important. I think what happens when I see painting, it's just been really difficult, is we don't always know who the service provider is for the child, and we know that there's been some changes and people leaving, coming, going, and so forth. And I know that this article, I think it was like August 5th, that was stating that there's really not more of a turnover than what there had been before when we were privatizing, but there's more of a turnover than what we experienced in Sarpy County. I think we had it good there in that sense. I do know that we have those that specialize in understanding from Sarpy County, but I think what we need is we need to know who that contact person is that's going to be with the child on a daily basis. Sometimes the foster parents, they have no idea about they don't know much about history. I understand that sometimes they give them in a hurry, but it's really unfortunate when they're not having all that information. Have that individual contact in our district. So we cover every building. If they were to contact us at some point, we'll always get them in touch with the right people who know what's taking place, and we'll help arrange any type of meetings. Okay, but I guess it's so hard to sit here when we make our own mistakes in schools. I don't want to point fingers at what's happening, but I don't think it's as good as what we had before, and that's an honest statement for me. As a person who's been working with the system, who worked in the system, it's just communication, we have to work harder. And I have to work harder. I don't have a problem working hard. I just want to be smart. And so I guess that's what we need to do, is a better job with that. And oh my gosh, we're using here with the hotline. You guys can be working with that too. I know that they're wanting schools to ask more questions so that they can make better decisions on accepted cases. But it's really, this is where communication might not have been there, because it's really contrary to what our district policy is. We are all mandatory reporters. If you're a custodian and you have concerns that there might be possible abuse or neglect, we don't want everyone interviewing the student. We don't want more information. We don't want to really pry into the lives of these parents also. And so they are mandatory reporter. Now typically non-certified staff would come to a certified staff counselor, social worker, psychologist, principal, and make that referral. But that in itself is even contrary to what our policy is. And so, you know, I was on the hotline the other day having that discussion, and I'm not saying they're wrong, it's just different from what we have. I was going to talk to you about that one, Brett.
And maybe by way of explanation in terms of Sarpy County, we were really fortunate before privatization started in terms of that we had a very stable Health and Human Services staff, which many of you have not had the luxury of having. We also had an IA staff that was pretty, intake staff that was pretty, there was not a lot of change. Since we've gone through several manifestations of this, from VisitNet and KBC people to NFC, the changes have been startling in terms of the numbers of case managers. And we were pretty lucky in Sarpy County that we had the same folks that were around for a very long period of time. So that's why, particularly on the intake side, there was a decision made that all of the people, the kids coming into the system through the intake workers were not Sarpy designated workers, so it was just a pool of people that also served Douglas County, and Laurie wouldn't know any of them, I mean, except for a very few. And now we do, again, have a Sarpy unit, which should help us in that regard and that communication, so.
You meant job stability, not necessarily.
Job stability, yeah. Yeah, I knew that. Okay, who else wants to talk here? What? Okay. Yeah. We send our court calendars to the principals of the districts, and so that they have the ability to see what kids are coming up for court based upon those court calendars. Thank you for reminding me. I knew that was on my list of things to do. So we have found that to be really helpful in terms of, so that if there is a principal or social worker that wants to make an appearance at our court, wants to give us information regarding that child, they have that court calendar in advance, usually by Wednesday or Thursday of the week before. And so that they will have that. Pat Zaleski from the Ideal School regularly appears in our courtrooms to talk about the progress of the students in her school. We do have principals and others who show up, guidance counselors from all of the districts located in the county, and that has been very helpful in talking about school progress and attendances. And they're not there every hearing. If things are going well, you wouldn't see them necessarily at those hearings. Pat's probably the exception. She's at most of the hearings. But I think it is a fairly regular practice in Sarpy County for a school person to be there if the child is in some kind of crisis and is not performing well either behaviorally or academically, so that we can focus on those issues at the time of the review hearings. So I think we found that to be very helpful, and the districts have found it to be helpful to have that calendar available. Question back there?
Well, why not just paper copy of attendance records and so on and so forth?
Because it doesn't say it doesn't tell the story. I agree with Ms. Allison. Paper record is fine. Johnny has, been acting out behaviors, but I will tell you, we get more minute by minute information too. I mean, we might get that the day before a young person was found to have marijuana in his possession in the school parking lot, which we might not have known otherwise. I don't know that it's a 100% necessary requirement, but I do find it helpful. And you have to understand Ms. Zaleski's role is as the principal of an alternative education program. By its very nature, she's going to have young people who have, mental health and substance abuse issues, and or they wouldn't be in the alternative program. And so she's going to, have some more students who have those issues, and as a result, it is helpful to have them. And I think it's back to that informal communication piece that I talked about at the beginning. Relationships matter, and often having the school person there while the case manager is there, while the foster parent is there, they will walk down the hallway to our conference room and maybe do a little problem solving before they leave the courthouse. So it can be really helpful in addressing those issues that need to be addressed at times in which there's not a family team meeting scheduled or other kinds of communication that would likely occur. Other questions? Yes?
Well, I just wanted to make kind of a question, but also a comment. Laurie, I think you talked about the change in the law and how that's kind of a little bit disconcerting now. And I think what you were talking about, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that schools now don't have to send in the referral if there's medical excuses for the absences. Is that what you were?
Yeah, what's difficult is those of you that work in schools, you'll see, and parents sometimes, when truancy typically is just symptomatic of other things. Honest to goodness, I mean, in all my years, there are very few kids that are just cut class, just to cut class and hang out. Especially when you're looking at those grade school age kids where they're relying on their parents to give that direction and to get them off to school. They oftentimes, in our policy, we call all students. If we don't get a call, we are continually calling. We're calling all for emergency numbers. We drive to the house to look for those things. Now, I know we're a little bit smaller proximity for kids, but the thing to keep in mind is parents will call in and say they have a headache, they have a cold, they have stomach problems, they have vomiting, they have a fever, those kinds of things. You can have that excused absence all the way through, and you can get up to 45 days. I mean, they're diligent. They can be really good when they're keeping them home. So I feel like that's really unfortunate because we don't really have as much backbone to it. Oh, stop. We don't have as much backbone to it. Now, Brad has a different, our district's going to do interpretation. Go ahead. You want me to stop talking?
Yeah.
I have a lot of experience, so if I'm looking for a job and, sometimes I can't be quiet, I might be needing to find something.
Keep in mind, the change in the law has gone from an absolute must report to a may if those absences are excused in medical reasons. But they still may, and I'm challenging our administrators. Don't let that get in the way. If this child's still not successful, I don't care if it is because of illness. Filing the report may still be of some value, even if you mark that you don't want the court to take action. Because I think what we'll find is that we'll be filing those initially on kids. They have to file if there's one unexcused absence, all right, and you're over 20. They may file even if all of those absences are excused and no reasons. Coming back with an amendment or with a follow-up. The first filing, we might say, give us some more time, we understand it's medical. But we all have families who use that medical thing to excess. And our administrators are being challenged to say, when you've made a decision, and that's why we pay you the big bucks, you have to make a decision that it is at excess now, and enough is enough. And so you would not refile, but you would send an addition to the county attorney saying, we waited long enough, this has happened since the last time, now we believe some action is necessary.
And history means something too.
Yeah, you don't wait if the kid had 2 years of this and now all of a sudden he's starting the same pattern in September or August. So it's going to be a little iffy, but I think that I expect our administrators in our district to make those tough decisions because their job is to look out after the best interests of the kid. Doesn't matter if it ticks off mom or dad, that's not our issue, or they are responsible for the kids. So I think it can work, but it's going to be a little gray, and you'll see how many districts do we have, Pete? 200, or how many districts are there, Pete? 249. 249, you're going to see 249 interpretations.
And our hope is that it won't change it that much, just because the communication has gotten so much better between the county attorney's office and the schools that, we're talking so much about these kids. Even if we're getting a referral that says mom is calling him in sick every day, we're going to call about that and try and meet with the family and see what's going on. And I think the communication between the school and the county attorney's office has really gotten better. We can all see the benefit of that. And now we're kind of just trying to draw everyone else in too.
And I agree with that. And I think the communication, even in Sarpy County, has gotten significantly better since the law, and there's a lot more talking about that. I'm going to have Michelle in a minute just talk real briefly about our truancy program, because I think that would be really helpful. And as you all know, whether it's small districts or large districts, truancy is a huge issue, and that we are addressing it now as a state, I think, is very important. I will anecdotally say that, as I said, I'm also in Otoe County, and one day we had, I think, arraignments on 5 kids out of Palmyra High School. Well, if you're familiar, Palmyra is not a very big school, and I was thinking, who's left at Palmyra High School? We got 5 kids here on truancy charges, but not quite that small. But we certainly, so in large districts and small, it continues to be an issue, and that communication piece between the education folks and the county attorneys is going to continue to be key.
And going off some of the previous discussion in regards to truancy and illness, the youth that we have on our truancy program have either been court-ordered onto the truancy program, or we collaborate with diversion and provide a service. The truancy program is a semester-long program in which we work one-on-one with the family. We check daily attendance of the youth. We go out to the home on a weekly basis, maybe sometimes more if they're not going to school that day, and meet with the family. We go over grades, we go over attendance. One of the biggest things with the truancy program that we have is that if Johnny calls me at 7:30 in the morning and tells me he's too sick to go to school, there's going to be a truancy officer at his house sometime that morning to verify Johnny is sick. And sometimes we have parents that are so happy to see us, and sometimes we have parents that are not so happy to see us. And I explain to the parent, I'm not here to challenge your parental skills or whether you're lying or telling the truth. I'm here to provide your family support. Because sometimes, and after they hear that, sometimes they say, you know what, he's not sick. He's not sick, I need you to get him to school. And I'm like, okay. So we look at things a little different, but we do. I mean, there's mornings where I go out to homes and Bobby's laying in bed and I say, come on. He has a fever, he's 103, I have a gas mask, I want to run out of the house, but there's verification that he's ill. There's other mornings where you go to a home and mom says, I just don't want to fight with him. So it was easier for me to say that he's sick and call his doctor, say that he's sick. I made an appointment for him at noon. He's got a sniffle anyways. And so sometimes they're just into that mode because it's so much easier than arguing with their teenager. So it's providing the support to the parent that, hey, we're here and Johnny's going to school today. And Johnny has an attitude for a while, but eventually Johnny realizes that Michelle's coming out to his house every morning, and he gets tired of looking at me, and he goes to school. And so once we work with that family through the issues as far as getting up and getting to school, then it's what's going on at school, maybe you don't want to be there. And so what do we need to fix? What can we work on? And so then we try to solve those issues. We've had a few youth whom were true illnesses on the truancy program. We have a young man, and I think Mom would have just allowed him to stay home every morning. However, the truancy program pushed and said, you know what, he needs to see a doctor. Let's get him to the doctor. We went to one doctor, we went to the next doctor. This child has narcolepsy and falls asleep, and it's not because he's up all night. Well, let me go back. Originally, he had thought that there was ghosts in his room. Well, he's hallucinating because of the fact that he's so tired. And so the truancy program has worked with parents on true medical issues, and when those cases have come up, then we've been available to go to school, get an IEP plan or 504 in place, and then the truancy program is no longer in effect. The schools that we've worked with have been so cooperative on true medical issues that are documented that we've never had to stay in for the semester. So I think that as far as medical and the truancy program, I think that we are a great asset for the parents and for the schools, either to work together to find out if there's a true illness or to find out what the true reason is why they're not going to school.
Just want to briefly say that, we also, and Michelle briefly touched on this, we have an evening reporting center in which kids go to the Juvenile Justice Center in our classroom and are able to have tutors available if they're struggling academically, and other kinds of support systems that will help them at the evening reporting center. There was also a reference to the CARE program. Our CARE program is actually our county-wide electronic monitoring program. It's a program in which kids earn their way off of the program. It can be as short as 8 weeks. They are on the electronic monitor for a minimum of 4 weeks, and then they earn their way off the system by their good behavior, good school attendance, performing well academically. So we have found that by utilizing all these systems, whether it's the information that we receive from the schools, being on the truancy program and the CARE program, that we've been able to help a lot of young people get back on track in those regards. We'll also note that we do have a form of the CARE program in Otoe County. We've been able to do some collaboration between Sarpy County and Otoe County to have kids on the monitor, and that's been a real help to us. They don't have the same level of monitoring in terms of personnel that we have in Sarpy County, but it has been a helpful exercise in terms of helping with those school and other issues. Well, we're winding down to, I think, the last 5 minutes here. So what other questions do you have, or would like to hear from any of the folks who have briefly spoken here? That's good. Well, thank you. Oh, there's one.
Alternative education indicated that your program is the same curriculum as the regular school that looks different. How does it look like?
The way it looks different is we can, I have a 10-period day. We also offer second semester classes during the first semester. We do some things more individualized with students. Students can, in some of our classes, work as fast as they want. I have what's called grading periods, which are every 4 weeks, and during a 4-week grading period, a student must complete 25% of the curriculum. So students aren't coming into our building just sitting. They are working in our building. So those are just a few ways that we can get that credit recovery.
And how long are they in school?
It all depends. I start off students in 4 or 5 classes just to begin with, and I wait until the first grading period, and I have criteria, and there are 3. If your attendance is good, if you have little or no behavior problems, you stay out of my office. And third, you're making academic progress, then we start increasing classes and their course load. So eventually they are there for 10 periods. It's a closed campus. We provide lunch there. It's satellite in. I don't have a kitchen. I don't have a gym, but we make it work.
I'm sorry, I just have one more thing. I am so appreciative of the county attorney's office in Douglas and Sarpy. I mean, we can send an email and they get back to us right away. So that communication is it's just wonderful. And then one more thing real quick. The other thing that I think that is really positive, she's flashing that red thing back there, so I'm just losing my mind here. The other thing that's real positive is we allow caseworkers to come into our school district. They can call us ahead of time. We want to make sure that they have some private space. We offer to be present during the interview. We really would prefer to. We know that there are times that it's really not in the best interest, but I think school districts really need to be open to that. I think that we need to be able to provide that for the students also, so that it is a neutral place and it's a safe place that they can have some interviews done. So I think we need to keep that in mind too.
Well, Laurie's had the last word, which is often the case. So I want to thank all of you and appreciate you coming.